Financial Advisory Board to order. First item, we'd like to welcome our new member, Mace Tamsey. Welcome to our collegial group. It's a pleasure having you. Could we have the roll call?
Member Kornfeld?
Here.
Member Chapelier?
Here.
Chairperson Greenwald?
Here.
And new member Tamsey?
Here.
Thank you.
And we also welcome our town manager.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Shall we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and possibly see if we can get rid of the echo that's. Oops. This way. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The agenda is in front of everyone. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda? If not, can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda for the meeting.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Agenda is approved. Anyone for public comment? I see no one in our audience today. Shall we move on to approval of the minutes of the March 24th meeting? Hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to peruse the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of March 4th, 2026 as written.
Good, second. I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Excellent, we will so note. Onward. No unfinished business, and we will move on with our new business today, which is several financial reports, and we will start with the annual comprehensive financial report, fiscal year ending September 30, 2025. Susie Matthews.
Good morning, everyone. For the record, Susie Matthews of the Finance Department. Today, I will be presenting on two items on the agenda. First being the annual comprehensive financial report, which covers the period October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2025. Before I dive into my presentation, I just want to say a big thank you to our town manager, Marshall Labadie, for giving us the leadership and setting the tone at the top to allow the finance department to work with all the other departments to make this or audit possible. The process was seamless, and we definitely had a good year. So thanks, Marshall. Thanks, David. Thanks to all the department heads and their team who helped us to compile the data to get us audited. And so with that, I will dive into our presentation. Go back to my Zoom here. Share my screen. Did this earlier and it worked. I'm not sure why it's not sharing. Yes, please. I know, I did it earlier and Okay, there we go. Find you. Okay, so now that we're over that hump, again, this report covers the period October 1st, 2024 through September 2025. So why do we need audits? Well, the purpose of government audits are to ensure that we are accountable to our stakeholders, mainly the public. We have to demonstrate that the government audits are verifying that we record and report our financial data accurately. The second is that we have to be in compliance with statutory regulations, and our audits ensure that public entities comply with applicable laws and regulation to maintain accountability. The other is which this is a big one, internal control evaluation. So auditors, they evaluate the effectiveness of our internal control systems within our local governments. There's so many nightmare stories of these cities where there are so many inefficiencies, or they're not reporting on time or accurately. That's not what we do here at the town. We're in constant audit preparation mode. And so part of our strategy is that we don't wait until the end of the year to have our schedules ready or do our cleanup. We do it on an ongoing basis. And so it allows us more time to give accurate and timely information. And that also helps our managers, the commission, and department heads to make better decisions as they have accurate and timely information. Because if you have old data, you don't know what funds you have coming in or what you already have collected or what you need to pay out. So that's the purpose of an audit in a nutshell. So let's jump into the financial highlights of our audit. So our net position is a key indicator of the government's long-term financial health. It measures the total assets plus deferred outflows of resources versus total liabilities plus deferred inflows of resources. I know that's a mouthful, but it's basically matching what your current assets or the assets that you have, what you have to pay out or what you are obligated to pay out, plus what was earmarked to come in as revenues. And so as of September 30th, 2025, our net position increased by 4.5 million or 15.2% over the previous year. So our net position for all funds as of September 30th was 33.9 million, which is a signal that the town's finances are in a healthy position.
Can I interrupt?
Of course.
How did we do that?
Well,
I mean, how did you get the increase? Is it higher taxes? The water rate went up? How did we accomplish that?
well, overall, our property taxes did increase, or millage rate remained the same. However, because of the increase in property values, our property tax revenues increased.
I mean, I think it's really multi-factors. I mean, one is that's certainly a big one because,
Water.
but the water fees have gone up significantly. We had a increase in solid waste collection fees. I mean, it's a variety of
Correct,
of
across.
factors.
So in the future, we won't need to raise that anymore?
Well, I know,
That's the budget discussion later on. But our net position is good. Again, we did acquire some new assets through the year too. Then you got to recapitalize those or depreciate those assets. So if you were to think of like the police went to the take home vehicle program, so we had to acquire vehicles for them, and then infrastructure investment. So when you invest in new pipes, lift stations, all of that new value of that asset gets thrown on the books too, and then slowly starts to come back down. So we did some major capital stuff on the water side. So every time we make a big investment, you wouldn't think like a motor, but you spend $150,000 on some type of water plant motor, that asset gets booked too, and those things. And then it starts to change a little bit.
Thank you.
Next, we'll jump into the financial highlights by fund, and we'll start with the general fund, which is our major fund. So the fund balance ended at $10.3 million, and that was an increase of 1.96 million over the prior year. So again, basically what Chairman Greenwald just mentioned, it's the property tax and increase, as well as our investment revenues and all of that, all together, that gave us this positive increase. So
I'll just add to that too. Like if you think about it, usually if we can budget within 2%, that meaning expenditures and revenues matching, we tend to get pretty close, but we spend less than we budget. It's pretty traditional for us. We've squeezed it down a little bit. It used to be a bigger number, and we've just gotten better through our modeling, bringing Susie on to help with a lot of our accounting strengths to really hone in on these things. So usually we're about 2 to 3% of our guesstimate 18 months before we close out the book. So we tend to add year over year to that. But again, we're also planning that we anticipated this when we get to that budget projection, and how we use the financial forecast model is that we do have some some capital projects that are forthcoming, that we're holding this money, if you will, in the reserves. And when we get to executing those projects, that will shrink because we have several $1 million of capital projects that are in queue.
Well, it'll shrink cash, but it won't shrink assets because it's going to be invested
It will
in
shrink. And again,
capital projects.
our general fund, with the fund balance in the general fund increased because we haven't spent out what we're planning to spend out just yet. So
You have an idea what? In the future, it's already been booked, it's not reflected on the.
you'll see a lot of it this year. We have a lot of, we'll talk about during the budget presentation. We have some big projects coming up, which gets interesting. So I don't want to.
Correct. And
I'm foreshadowing our wonderful conversation on budget. Yeah.
some of it also in the year to date to actuals in my next presentation, because this period covers through September.
Yeah.
Correct.
Agreed. Let's see if we can move through this and,
Sorry.
make sure that we're following the rules and working our way to a clean audit and so on and so forth. And then we'll move on to the other aspects.
So next we'll move on to the building fund. So the building fund, they ended their fund balance at 4.36 million. And this was an increase of 760,000 over the prior year. Again, these increases were driven by permit fees from activity within the town, as well as through our interlocal agreement with the town of Gulfstream. So that was a big push for us, and that did increase our fund balance. Our interest income also helped to boost the fund balance for the building department fund. Next, I will move into the water and sewer funds. The water and sewer, their increases were just over 10.8% or 617,000. And this again was due to the rate adjustment as well as interest income returns. The expenses also decreased, which is always a good thing. Due to there were several projects that were underway that were not yet completed. So including the sewer lining project that was in the development stage, as well as, so that was one of the major items that was included in that. So as far as the assets breakdown, we added $1.2 million of assets overall, or 42% over the prior fiscal year. And this slide gives us a breakdown as far as the governmental fund as well as the business fund. And so land remained the same, or construction in progress, as you could see, for the end of 2025 over the prior year is 266 thousand. So, I'm sorry, 2.6 million. The building and improvements, that also increased over the prior year. And equipment also increased from the prior year. So overall, which is a good thing, we have increased our assets by 1.2 million. And that's a combination of the water, sewer, and the general funds. The next slide, even though it's might be a little tiny, it's just a breakdown of our debt and net position between all funds. So the water fund reduced their debt by 700,000. So we were able to close out one of the loans that we had on our books, and getting rid of debt is always a good thing. As well as for the general fund, we reduced the debt by 767,000. So we're paying down the monies that we borrowed to finance the fire department. So the next slide is our audit opinion and findings. So our auditor, sure.
Why do we have debt in the general fund when we have a surplus in the general?
So that debt was for the fire station. That's the only general fund debt we currently hold. All the other debt is related to the water plant, and the sewer infrastructure. But we did have it for the fire station. It's pretty good. We got 3.25% fixed over 10. It's a pretty good deal. That was for helping us a little bit with cash flow management. Because at the time we had some of the caps in place and we were kind of spending a lot of money getting the fire station and everything in place. So we borrowed a portion. What did we borrow? Like 5-6 million?
5 million.
5
Yes.
million. So we didn't borrow the whole thing. We spent 3.8 million cash, and then we borrowed 5 to build the station.
Okay.
Okay, so our auditors, Nolan Holt Minor, they reviewed our books and they have concluded that our financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects. So for all funds, across all funds, we got a clean audit opinion. Our findings from the prior year, those were all cleared and resolved. We had one minor ding, and it was due to our ongoing capital projects. So we had some development fees that were not capitalized. So the auditors suggested that we shouldn't have expensed those fees. They should have been part of our capital improvement. So we would carry those on our books as an asset until completion of the project, where we would capitalize all the costs associated with that project. So that was all. So we had a good, clean audit. Again, we had a timeline where we wanted to complete our audit by April 30th, but we're doing much better than we did last year.
I know Mr. Kornfeld has been on me since the day I started. You know, why is it taking so long for these audits?
And Marshall kept asking, where's the audit? Where's the audit? It's coming and it's going to be better this year. So we made some improvements, and again, we're going to speak to our auditors to see if we can get it by April 30th. So that gives us enough time to dive into our budget season without having to think about the audit. So that concludes that section of my presentation.
Couple of quick comments and questions. Number one, good job. Congratulations again. Always nice to see. Just out of curiosity, this quote unquote minor ding that we have on that capitalization, it's the same way we've been doing it for years, but no one's picked up on it before. Is that the idea?
No, This
But we
is,
did it differently this time.
This is, I think it's engineering fees
yes, these,
they're gonna associate with the capital construction, which we haven't authorized yet. It's kind of odd. So
Oh,
we
okay.
expensed it. Susie expensed it, which I would think you would normally do because it's an engineer. We haven't approved the capital project, which then you could do a journal entry to bring it forward and recognize that it's something
I
that
got
needs to be
you.
depreciated. Because if we cancel the capital project, it truly is an expense. So it's,
I guess,
the
so
auditor's gotta
it's
prove the
really
money
more like a
somewhere.
timing thing, because normally we
Yep.
do roll that into the capital project, right?
Correct.
Because that's what,
Yep.
yeah, okay, fine, got it. And then my last little question was the consulting accountants that we have helping us, that firm, have we used them for a long time or?
no, the whole, this is their third, this is their third audit. Before that, we had Grau and Associates. So I think we have about one more year, then we have to go back through that,
To
the
bidding.
Okay,
panel
good.
review and.
Because I've been on this committee board for a while now, and I remember some years ago, we were talking, we said, you know, we got the same guys, maybe it's time for somebody to take a fresh look. But now it's going to be part of our policy that every X number of years you're going to
Yep,
be.
yep.
Every 5 years. I think.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine. Excellent. Happy to see that. Good. Good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
well,
good to it is good to change it. So somebody
yeah,
else
it's
takes a look at
New
it.
set of eyes and, you know, all that, but
Someday we'll get a quicker auditor. But you know, at this
Oh,
point, at least they're doing their job.
all right, good. So anything that anybody's worried about giving this report, or we're all good?
This is our first clean audit.
Yeah, no, I think,
This is
as
the first
again,
one.
I said,
Yeah.
congratulations.
And that minor ding didn't get booked. It was
Right.
just a communicated piece. So this is clean. Like there's
So,
nothing, no management problems, no
congratulate you,
financial,
crew.
no
Wow. Good job.
commingling of duties and separation of duties. It's all good stuff.
They were fine.
Right.
Well, we always strive for nothing.
Right.
That's
That's our
the
goal.
goal.
Zero.
So our goal in the finance department is do it right the first time. So we do try.
Well, that's what Vince Lombardi said. He said, if we strive for perfection, we may achieve excellence. Because you're never perfect, no matter what you do. But that's what he said.
So I will dive into the next section of my presentation. I do not have slides, but you do have the detailed report. It was included in your agenda packets. And this is going to cover our current fiscal year. And this is from this data covers October 1st, 2025 through April 30th of 2026. So this represents our unaudited data of our budget to actual performance for the first 7 months of this fiscal year. So overall, the town remains in a favorable financial position. Results to date are consistent with seasonal revenue collection patterns and project implementation schedules. Most of our property taxes have been received, while several capital projects, infrastructure improvements, and reserve appropriations are expected later in this fiscal year. So I will begin with the general fund, since it's our largest fund. The general fund continues to demonstrate strong financial performance. Through April 30th, the general fund revenues totaled 16.6 million, representing 86% of the annual budget. Property tax collections remain the primary revenue source and have reached approximately 13.6 million, or 96% of budgeted revenues. The general fund expenditures total approximately 10.3 million. Spending levels are consistent with the portion of the year that has already passed. Most of the departments remain within the expected levels of personnel and operating costs. And we do have some variability with the timing related capital projects that are ongoing, but overall revenues continues to exceed expenditures, reflecting a healthy general fund financial position. Then I'm going to turn to the discretionary sales tax funds. Revenues for that fund was approximately 194,000. As you may recall, this revenue source concluded as of December 31st. So we the county stopped collecting monies for this revenue source. However, we did receive funding through, I think we collected our last receipt through April of this year. So, for the upcoming year, we will not be receiving any monies for the discretionary sales tax fund. Expenditures through April was 78,000. The lower expenditure level reflects capital projects that are still in progress that have not yet been completed. However, we have sufficient resources within the fund that will support these projects as the implementation continues.
You know what the amount you have left, is that enough to cover all these funds?
Yes,
How much is it?
we have, I think, for the discretionary sales tax fund.
Yeah, so I think we have most of the discretionary locked up. We got some more money, which is good. We're waiting on the governor to assign our appropriation request where we're gonna redo the pathways and then put in the embedded crosswalk lighting. So we have that appropriation with the state. If that comes in, we'll use those funds because that project cost over that time has probably increased. And we kind of packaged the pathway because with A1A being redone, it's probably time to just resurface our walkway and do the crosswalk. So,
You need funds to do that?
Yep.
Yeah.
yep, with the state dollars to package. It's we're originally we said 300, but it's probably gone up to about 400. Yeah. Yep.
You started 70 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask what kind of walkways they'll be?
It'll be asphalt. We're just gonna we're gonna resurface it. It's the most cost effective means. I wanted something a little bit more robust. I don't know about changing the surface type, but there are places where I wanted to raise it. But that with FDOT creates a hole. That'll be a 3-year project and it'll be $3 million if you get them involved. So we're just gonna keep it where we have an existing right-of-way maintenance agreement with FDOT so we can resurface the pathway at will. There's no problem there. We'll do some other like tie-in works where you see the FDOT contractor did some bad work. We need to fix that. So that's kind of predicating the appropriation request with the legislator is like, your contractor didn't do the best of jobs. Throw some money our way so we can touch up the right of way that was in our pathways that were kind of messed up.
So the next fund that we're gonna review is the building fund. Their revenues remain stable. They collected over 1.7 million, which is 68% of their budget. This reflects continued permit and development activity within the town, as well as revenue generated through our interlocal agreement with the town of Gulfstream. Their expenditures were approximately 1.3 million or 42% of budget. Their personnel and operating costs are tracking as anticipated. Capital projects remain below budget due to the renovating activities, including the building department roof that will be replaced later in this year.
Include Gulfstream in here?
Yes,
Last year was a significant piece. Is it still a significant piece of the?
they're still,
Yeah, Gulfstream seems to be helping us because we're on a downward trend currently. Where the building permits in the town are really lagged behind. And we think it's just a temporary environmental change, not like environmental like out there, but just the economics and people just have come to a slowing of projects. Then last week we got a pickup on another project. So it's very unpredictable. So we're on a downward slide, but Gulfstream's coming through with some big projects. Like when they do it's big, but they have fewer projects, but they're
large.
huge. But again, we're committed to finishing out those projects. So these homes could take 3 years for which we collect no more revenue. We collect the revenue up front to cover the 3 years of cost. And then, which will affect this, we have to, on June, to be compliant with state statute, we got to change our fee structure a bit to accommodate private providers and to charge inspections on real costs versus some other thing, which we weren't doing anyway, but it just a few changes on our fee schedule. And if we do recall, last year, we reduced the permit fees by 12%. I don't know that we'll see that again this year because of the slowing. And if it stays pretty slow right now, we're probably may have to reach a little bit into reserves, the building fund reserves to patch it out. But I think it'll be close, but it won't be like you saw from last year where we added 760,000 this year. I think we're going to be scratch. And then when we do the budget presentation, you'll see that we're pulling up reserves a bit. And they're doing some capital projects with the building department over at that structure, roof, windows, doors, things that the building department had never paid for. They're going to assume some responsibility for the structure. So
Happening with the dunes, is that decreasing the amount of building in the beach and the intercoastal? Walls on the dune.
it's hard at dunes. Again, kind of it's a fluctuating environment. It's a very dynamic environment through there. And we've a couple years ago, we did a study kind of how to capture the stability of it. So it's getting better. I think it's just a natural dynamic environment moving through. Some of the other issues that you'll see, just kind of prelude the next meeting if you're excited to show up and come to our commission meeting.
Oh, yeah.
We have some issues in the seawall ordinance and structures in the construction. You might have read it in the Coastal Star. And I helped Rich as much as possible explain a somewhat complicated issue that we have some concerns over breakaway walls on the dune face. We have 2 projects with that. And if you get enough rise or push on that, on a storm surge, it could, obliterate the dune in a point and kind of wash out. So we're trying to fix that part, which is kind of separate from today, but work on that separately. But that's at the next meeting as well.
That is not decreasing the amount of permits of building.
No, I don't see, if we don't fix this, you can't build on the coast anymore. That's not realistic. And I think we'll be prone to lawsuits. So, we're working to fix that to allow folks to do it in a reasonable fashion. There has to be we thought the DEP, most of the people that own the oceanfront properties would love to put a seawall in, but the DEP is not allowing it. But it would help structural integrity for the size of structures dune adjacent if they had one, but they're not issuing it. So we have to come up with some mix in between, because DEP's, kind of like the Department of Yes, you just have to fill out the paperwork. And at times I don't think they're fully evaluating the site conditions as well as they should. They do a pretty thorough job, but it always seems to get to a yes. And we have a couple that we wish weren't yes, and they would have raised the structure up a bit. So we got to work through that as much as we can. It's hard. The north end of town's easier, wider beach, right? The V zone, which is the run-up zone, is not as far up into the land areas of the dune. So here, south, the dune face and right away compress. So the flexibility is not there. So that's kind of what we're trying to work on, how that works.
So I will continue with the enterprise funds.
Yes.
So moving on to the water fund. The water fund reported revenues of approximately 2.53 million of the budget. Expenditures total 2.46 million, representing 47% of the projected spend for the year. Capital spending remains below projected levels as several planned infrastructure projects are either pending or they're in the early stage of implementation. The fund remains operationally stable, and we anticipate additional project activity during the year, during the remainder of the fiscal year. The sewer fund generated 1.29 million, which is slightly below our projection for the year. However, the fund is still in good financial shape, and we're continuing with our capital improvement projects, which includes a major item, the sewer sanitary sewer lining projects, which remains as and improving our wastewater infrastructure system. So in summary, the town's overall financial
One question on the sewer, how much is that project again? Ongoing sewer fund?
I do not have the full
Is it 8?
number, but I can,
It used to be 8.
I will get back to you with that number. I do not have.
Did it go up?
On,
Wasn't it 8 at some time?
What's that?
The sewer lining project. Do you?
Cost of it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, we got a great, we wrestled that thing to Mercy. And we took a project that was 6 to 8 million and make it, it's probably gonna be about 1.4, 1.5 million.
That's what I thought.
And you'll see it, we apologize for those that are watching to you here. You know, it's a little bit slower, it's a little bit disruptive, not too bad. You can get through traffic pretty well. Slowed a little bit. We had a couple of issues out there with bypass and stuff. We had to get that tuned up with the contractor. But it's moving along. It's going well. The side streets, great, perfect, like new. You guys are great for another 50, 60 years. It's just a little bit hard, a little fussier on the bigger lines. And A1A with some of the condos, larger condos have a bigger draw, as you would imagine, put a lot more water into the system. So we have to get the bypassing right. So I had to do one at night. So we apologize for night disruption, but had to get those low flows handled. So
Yeah, I mean, my comment would be that it's really gone very well, other than the delays we had getting started between FDOT and a bunch of other things.
and the bridge looks good, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think, you know, it's really been minimally disruptive, relatively speaking, to what it could be, so.
Oh, if we had to
And
dig,
plus the price, I mean, we went to the town to approve 3 million for the sewer relining project.
3.5.
3.5.
3.5.
Coming
We're
in
at
at like
1.4.
1.5 or
Yeah.
something, so, you know, I think that's,
How much
really
was
good.
in the budget? Well, for it, so you're showing.
Right now we budgeted this year, we're our budget for that project's about 1.6. I think I put in the sewer
So
fund.
you
is
dropped it
1.6.
down to what? Okay.
Yeah, so we gave ourselves some room because we
you know,
never know. With the sewer lines, something could be just not right and we have to,
Yeah.
I think we have to, we have an issue, I think on the south end, we're sucking sand in somewhere. So we got to figure that out. So we might have to put down well points and draw the water table down enough to go in and fix the pipe because there's something, a crack that's got sand, a lot of sand coming in. Who knows for how long we've been
Oh my
treating
goodness.
sand in Delray. So we gotta get those things corrected.
Wow. Excellent. Excellent work.
good project, and I think
Yeah.
seems to be coming along very
Yeah.
nice.
Pat, Sergio and the guys, they're doing a great job keeping that thing moving forward. So, it's good. It's a project we needed. It took a lot longer, but we got the right price, thank gosh.
Excellent.
So just to summarize what I spoke about earlier, the town continues to be in a strong financial position as of April 30th, 2026. The general fund continues to perform well, supported by strong property tax collections. The discretionary sales tax exceeded expectations due to stronger than anticipated final receipts. The building department reflects steady development activity, while the water and sewer funds remain stable and well-positioned to support planned capital improvements. As we move forward through the final months of the fiscal year, staff will continue to closely monitor revenues, expenditures, and project implementation to ensure that the town's resources are managed responsibly and efficiently. That concludes my summary of your budgeted to actual,
I have one comment. You have seems very accurate 7-month results to April,
correct.
and this is the middle of June. Marshall, remember, and everybody else, we used to cry for numbers on a quarterly basis and get them 6 months late. So you're doing a great job getting us.
I appreciate
This is, when I saw it 7-month, I said, usually my mind quarter by quarter. And then I looked at the way it was put together, it seemed very, very well put together. So is this a new system, accounting system, or is it
It's
just?
called the Susie
is
system.
it- so it's
She's
just-
on it. Everything's booked at the end of the month and it's closed and
Yeah.
you
So
she's
just-
on it. She's on
Going
it.
to close on May,
You just left off what I wanted to say. She's doing a great job.
Yeah.
kind of hitting my sweet spot, because again, when I started my job here 5 years ago, I was new to government. So, which Maggie, you and I were talking about that earlier, governmental accounting is a little different from private sector. So I think with the training, the support of our manager, David, the staff here, I've gotten better. And I can promise board that I will only get better as we progress. Because you kind of dig into the numbers and you've learned them and you make things more efficient. And the staff here, we're pretty good at trying to keep things timely. And so that helps with me providing more timely reports. So it's not just me, even though I want to take credit, but it's a team effort.
You should.
It's
You
a
should.
team effort as well.
I
Thank
mean,
you,
the year-end
Susie.
audit this year will be on April 30th.
I will, our
Well-
auditor is gonna drop off
It
or.
wasn't on us. I was we had everything into them through December,
Over the.
everything in December, and it took them this long.
What is the rule? Isn't it has to be done by April?
June 30th.
June.
So we
That's right.
still
We used to
have a
go
month
into
to go.
July and August.
So we're a month ahead.
Yes.
We're done. But again, we provide everything by December, and they usually don't start. And she starts calling, David's calling, and they just don't really start until like
Mhm.
late March.
March.
And you're like, well,
Ah,
what have you been doing for 3 months? But
well-
for a small account,
So that's,
So-
Small.
yeah.
so thank you.
Small
Thank
but
you.
mighty.
Thank you for that report.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions or concerns? I know I didn't see anything that didn't look like it was pretty much right on schedule when I was looking through it, but anyone have any concerns? And then whenever we get these reports, I always ask Susie and Marshall if they have any concerns about how we're doing with the budget that we should be.
We're going to
That we
talk
might
about
have missed.
concerns here shortly.
I'm talking about where we are now.
Budget, we'll
No,
talk.
well, you're talking about next year's budget. Yeah,
We're
we'll
gonna
get to that.
Yep, we got some big stuff to unravel and potentially discuss. And I think, this group especially will be, depending on November's results, could be very active. I'm gonna need as much help and the community's help to figure it out. And I mean, there are simple answers, but you've got to do it strategically so everybody's happy with what we do.
Me personally, I'm hearing your tone of voice and I like it. I mean, you're addressing it. That's the point.
Oh, so we're ahead of it. We started to look at with the 5-year forecast, which David is now actively working to update now that we know the legislator's intent that's going to be on that ballot initiative. But when we started that 5-year forecast, we presented that to the commission in May. We said if they do a full elimination, which was kind of the intent, as they were looking at doing a full elimination, we were like, it's, we're off the wheels and we're struggling. And it's not struggling because we can't, it's just, you can't cut your way out of this. What amendment that you will see, smaller towns, much worse than we have it. I'm optimistic to believe we'll make it out of this. Now, that's not really a big cheery endorsement, but we'll make it out of this, I think. And Highland Beach can survive as a community. I believe. Not everybody's coming out of this. And this isn't cutting your way out of this. Is strategic. We have to get through this. It's going to be austerity, draconian cuts matched with tax increases, but you can't increase taxes too much to undo the benefit that the voters voted for. So it's a tricky thing. Luckily, the beautiful community that is Highland Beach, I think we will survive. We'll get through this. It'll just be real bumpy. Yes.
Would one of the solutions be annexing more property, in other words, go all the way down to Spanish River?
No, because you're gonna have to annex from 2 bigger, stronger towns, Delray and Boca. That's not really in it. Those are the conversations though, right? Like we're gonna have to put everything on the table to figure out where we go, how we do it. We're a little challenged by a land acquisition because we're not facing the western face of the county. I think the county's tenor will change that. If anybody wants to annex any of our land and provide the services, go for it because the county's taken a huge gut punch.
Oh my God.
I've got it at the end of this conversation of presenting the budget. So David's going to walk you through. Again, this is a 75% operating budget. We're still going to work. It's not completed yet. I originally intended to deliver a fuller one on the 24th. You guys came together a little bit earlier, which is great because I think we need to start having the conversations earlier. Dr. Greenwell, you've always said that. So we got a 75% budget. I still need to fine tune some budget line items, stuff like that. But in the big picture, it's there. And then we'll talk about the constitutional amendment that's going to be on the November election, what that looks like for us, the property appraiser, Dorothy Jackson, her team led by Dino in her office, did a good job of kind of foreshadowing what that would look like under a series of assumptions, which you do in an economic model. That's what we have to, that's going to be, some of those numbers don't, that's why I say I think we'll make it through, but it's like in the in-between, it's going to be rough. And I don't know the secondary or the unintended consequences of insolvency of other communities. Boca's not going to become insolvent. I don't believe Delray will. Boynton, maybe. South Bay, Belglade, Palm Springs, Haverhill, Green Acres should be okay. But some of those down, they're gone. They can't, that's because their taxable value is lower. So when you have an assessed value average of say, $200,000 to $300,000, and then you take 250 out of it, there's nothing left to tax. You can't get that limit up fast enough and quick enough to fill that gap. So
basically this proposal or this thing we're going to be voting for in November really hurts lower income communities more than anything. And
it
people are
has
gonna-
the appearance of a very regressive action. It really, like, if you look at this, it does. So, but at the other, and the reason why you could say that is you could look at like a Manalapan and Palm Beach, all of this effect is less than 1% of their budget. But when you have an average home value of $12 to $15 million, and that's pretty much your entire stock in a small town, Manalapan and Palm Beach, they get through these things. But part of it is that if you look at some of the other language in the enrolled bill, there's a lot of transfer of power via general law to the legislator that could be just as dangerous because no longer will we have an opportunity to vote on it. It goes straight to the legislator, and the legislator has had a very clear goal to restrict, some could say eliminate, but I'll use a safer word like restrict the operations of local governments and their existence. So that is kind of what we're looking at. And like, I was just talking with the fire who were starting to negotiate their contract. I said, math is not political. Math is not emotional. Math doesn't care what you look like. It's just how the numbers are going to roll out. So we're going to be doing a lot of massaging and stuff. But again, it's the provisions outside of that second year where they move it to the general law provisions that get kind of dangerous. So it's almost like this huge trust act with a partner that doesn't like us. It's hard to, on a bigger scale, think, oh, we're going to entrust them. So one of the provisions is they get to start to determine what we could spend money on. It seems simple enough. You'd think, oh, police, fire, but they could squeeze it further under general law action versus a constitutional change, which says the electorate of a municipality determines its general operations and functions. Home rule. By general law, slicing that off, now the legislator can act independently without the voters. I mean, indirectly through the voters' representation, it's fine. But it puts the general law in there. No longer does it require that constitutional amendment to move forward. So it's going to be interesting. Right. Nonetheless, there's some caps on growth for non-homesteaded properties, which we're going to probably depend more heavily on. How much more is the conversation, but we'll probably have to rely on them a bit. That growth doesn't exist. It's a 5-year window to get your full homestead. That helps a little bit, gives us some breathing room, especially on uncapping and change and movement. Gives us a little bit of room.
So if you don't homestead, you're going to have to pay more taxes in Florida, Highland Beach.
But it won't grow. Yes. But the limits that they put on it, that instead of a 10% growth. So if you have a non-homestead now, it could grow at 10%. If you think of your second home, it can grow at 10%, right?
All right.
Now it can only grow at 5%.
Oh, I see.
So what we're going to do is when we've seen these rebounds in tax values, those won't rebound as quickly. So when we do have economic downturns, or if this does have an unintended consequence on property values, I'm not so sure, but it's going to have some effect. So these years when we're projecting, 3 to 5% growth rates, we may be looking at more 1 to 3% growth rates, probably on the lower side. So, getting ahead of steam is going to be difficult to stabilize our revenues. Again, the hard part, and then this is personal, right? And it should be a little bit personal with you all, is we've done it the right way. The Highland Beach way, as much as I've, been up here like banging my head, well, your spending caps and this, it's so difficult. You kind of have built the model of how to succeed, right? Now it's not good enough. And the governor and the legislator has taken some more pronounced actions or put the proposal. I mean, it's still got to pass with 60%. You can, if does it or does it not. We've had 2 other previous very popular ballot initiatives that couldn't get there. That being, what was it? The marijuana and abortion, which are nationally have been, regardless of political stance or personal, I'm just saying they're very popular with the electorate. It couldn't get over that 60% threshold. But this, you never know. Now, one would say, why is it now? I think it's a legacy issue for the governor. And I think he has 60 million in his pack that he can use on this. So they're going to be pushing hard. We are limited to what we can say back, right? So I could say it in the manager's minute. And got a couple hundred of you that like to read it to kind of inform and educate. Because the ballot language, if we remember, doesn't represent the 20 pages of changes. It's just a summary of here's the language to effectuate that bill. And I'll email you guys the bill so you can see the detailed language, because it's not just X or Y. It's X or Y, then all these general law provisions. And I think most people aren't going to, it's kind of inside baseball-y. Like, what do you mean general law? It's all general. Well, there's constitutional law and then there's general law to make these changes. They're shifting it as much as they can to general law to
Is this
squeeze.
thing that they're proposing, does it work in other states?
No other state has it.
So not even Oklahoma, that's his big buddy, the governor of Oklahoma. I heard DeSantis speak one time.
Oh, so Oklahoma does have some low property taxes, but they haven't gone to this point of complete homestead. They just have other caps, but their sales tax is high. And so it's like every state. Again, this is just my read and maybe some of my colleagues that I really respect out there in the management industry. This appears to be a tax shift. Taking it from homesteads and put it to the non-homestead, because the cost to operate generally stays there. It's going to ruin some small towns, poorer small towns, but it seems to be a tax shift, right? Like no longer is the homestead going to pay it. You're going to push it over to the non-homestead. That's a philosophical issue. It's been clearly communicated. That's what we should be doing is, and it's kind of odd language because I've always refused to use that language. Just because you're rich doesn't mean you should be paying it. As if, are you willing to pay that? But they're kind of saying, well, then these second homers will do it. So what does that do to the second home market if all of a sudden the taxes double? Is this as desirable? It doesn't make a difference. I see that's the part, does a couple $1,000s one way or the other make it or break the second home market in Highland Beach and or the coastal? Probably not. I see you shaking it like I'm with you. I don't know that it crushes it. It softens it maybe, but or it pushes everybody to homestead. And then we got to chase. Do you have a homestead here, homestead New York, homestead Connecticut, homestead in Montana? Like where are your homesteads? That's hard. That's a hard chase.
Yeah.
And if we're restricted on chasing with revenue to go chase it, those are those are challenges. I mean, really, and again, it's got to pass by 60%. Next year's budget looks great. As planned, as we've been working towards on our 5-year forecast, everything is smooth. Great service. You guys are happy. Taxes are low. We're the 3rd lowest in that doesn't change next year. It's after that, like, now what do we, those are tough. So what I always tell staff is the magic number is right around 10%. Once you get to 10% cuts, it's people. You can't cut pens and pencils and paper and just don't turn these lights on. And 10% gets to people, and we're right at that number, right? So, yikes. Those are more uncomfortable conversations because of a similar sized town that I look at, we're usually staffed at about 30% less than other small towns that do the full service like we do. So we've, like I said, we've done all the right things to keep it bare bones, keep us focused, don't overstaff. But, 10% is where that trigger is. So those are the conversations where it's, you can't cut everything and say, we're just going to have the people here, but they don't get a desk to sit at. There's no power at the bill. That's not effective either. So 10% is that magic number and we're close to it.
Okay.
So I'm hoping we squeeze it. We have a lot of big capital programs. So those are conversations with you, the commission, the community, some of these bigger capital projects that we had on in our sites. Maybe we either change it, value engineer our ideas way down to functional versus optimal, right? And again, the one last thing around this, you're going to start hearing me say, and I'll practice it with you. So if you get mad, maybe I'll change the language. In the Great Recession, right? I pretty much formed my career in the Great Recession. And what that was is those were temporary changes, right? That was an economic collapse from a finance market for homes, collapsed, but it was a one time and slowly built its way out. But at that time when we were building our way out and saying, take furlough days, less pay, more for less, we weren't into an inflationary period.
Yeah.
So the cost of living is increasing, and this isn't temporary, this is structural. So the motto and the mantra is no longer more with less, it's going to be less with less. It's just less. So, and that's the kind of how this bill works its way through the system is less with less and for less, not you more and then everybody take it in the shorts. It just doesn't work because it's less with less services. And I could think on the bigger agencies, and the county administrator had even said it too, like, cutting medians, keeping the medians clean. That's the first thing it's cut. That's not that important as much as fixing a pothole. So all those edge things, keeping parks mowed and clean and in place, those are the services that just go away. It's less. We'll do it once a year instead of every 2 weeks. It's challenging, right? And the only lever that local governments have is raising the tax rate, right? And that's just going to irritate people if the only way to do it is again, what they said, if you have bigger homestead, but so we need to get to about 5 mills. If we got to 5 mills, right, and that was with full elimination, Highland Beach functions, but the county's going to increase their tax rate. Your other taxing agencies are.
Yeah.
So I don't think we need to get, if 250 is the number, it's no longer 5 mills. We need to get to 4.5 mills. That's why I said, I think we survive. It's just, you don't want to raise the tax to a homestead person to a point where they're like, well, everything I just saved, you just took back in an elevated tax structure. It kind of defeats the benefit and purpose, and it irritates the electorate. We don't want to irritate the electorate because then the trust is lost. Legislator gets more involved. Now they are equipped with this general law power. I know it's very complex. It's probably a lengthy description. I just want you to know, there's a lot going on. This is challenging as to now over the next next 5 year window, if it passes, it's very challenging and different. And insolvencies, right? All these other towns, what is that level of insolvency with all these other towns? What's that secondary effect? We just don't know. Constitutionally, all these towns can issue debt. Creditors are first in line. So the creditors get paid before residents get service, this and that. The creditors get made whole under the Constitution of Florida when you basically, as the commission and I sign off I'm down with the sinking ship. We're out of business, what does that have otherwise? Because the county has to assume responsibility. Well, these small towns that no longer can function because they don't generate revenue, the county's going to take over with no revenue and provide that service in a larger geographic space.
Oh boy.
It's challenging. I think, again, I'm hopeful we get through it, but Highland Beach is going to be a little bit different. From the local government perspective, maybe your day-to-day life, the water's going to turn on. It's still going to be beautiful, award-winning water. The trash will get picked up. Everybody's going to be happy and nice that there's just, things, just that concierge element that we're trying to build. And mostly it's keeping public safety functional because that's what you have here. That's your the biggest service piece, that's going to be challenging.
Well, I would be more optimistic than you are. I mean,
Good,
The
good.
pe-
Thank
the-
you. Please make me feel
the
better.
people here
Make me-
like their 3 miles of paradise, and the public here, the residents will, I honestly believe, will like step up and help out, and it'll get
It's
done.
at
It's
least-
a lot of work. I'm not, but it'll get done. So quick question for this year's upcoming budget that
Yep.
we're about to start discussing.
Yep.
We don't need 2 parallel budgets for this year based on whether this passes or not, correct? It would be for the following year. if
And the
it passes.
following year, the first year, the
I mean,
150
it's only,
results at about 975, no more than $1 million.
Yeah, it's
And it
not-
doesn't account for growth at 2%. We're at 900,000. I
Really-
think that next year. So the year after, we're up to closer to that, 1.6 to 2 million. I think we could, but if we don't elevate the millage rate in some fashion, it's kind of the prelude, like we're going to have to tweak it a bit. It gets, 2 million, that was that 10% exercise that we did that we have to do now statutorily every year. That's about 1.8. We said, you cut some capital out.
Well-
You start to use attrition to shrink the workforce a little bit. We've already, mingle jingle maybe becomes a little bit of a smaller event. We just start squeezing in on some of these things and extra services
And jobs. People will lose their jobs.
uh,
Not here so much, but I'm talking about in the state of Florida, jobs will be affected from this
Yeah, but
short-sighted thing.
but at the same time, it sounds cold, but I don't think they care.
No, they don't care.
So I don't want to say it like that, but it is. I think there'll be, I mean, here's a number that'll blow your mind, right? So the MSTU, remember that scary concept that if you wanted the county to do your fire, you pay 3.4 mils. And we said, that's, double Delray's cost. Why would we ever think to do such a thing, So they stand to lose under the $250,000 scenario because they have a huge geographical range, $150 million out of their $725 million budget. And they'll start to assume communities that they don't provide service in currently. So, I mean, and they can't, you could raise as much as you want, but you can't get to the number. So if you look at it, and again, the sheriff, Bradshaw's pretty good at his job, I would think. He's at 1.1 billion. You think the sheriff's going to operate at 1.1 billion, continuing when, fire's looking at, a 25, 30% reduction in the revenue collection? The sheriff's going to shrink. What does that do? What does that look like? I think is a precipice to say, we better make sure we have police and fire here, because if you depend on them, it's the service quality is going to be shrunk down. So,
well, I mean, to me, from a policy standpoint, the biggest problem that they've had is that no one has discussed in any way, shape, or form how all this lost revenue is supposed to be replaced. And to any sane person, you realize that the money's got to come from someplace.
well, that's the thing.
And they haven't been discussing, well, okay, so what's the alternative when we give people the free goodies in their terms of their homestead exemptions? Who's stepping up with the money to replace it? And
So,
I mean, I haven't been involved like you, but just from reading about it and stuff, I haven't seen any answers to those basic questions, like where's the money supposed to come from?
less with less. They're okay with less with less.
Well,
And it may work in a more rural setting where you don't really demand a lot of services because you live far from population bases. Maybe you don't need but a sheriff on an emergency situation. Here's a little, again, it just takes away from that home rule concept. Like, you've created what you've wanted here as a community. You've created what you want, and you were allowed to do that. Whatever that cost is, you're allowed to say yes, no, maybe so. To South Florida, the denser populations, it's hard to function under the model that's really kind of simplistic thinking that the complexities don't exist, right? And they didn't study the complexities of how it all interworks. What are the outcomes? The governor wanted a trust fund. I'll recognize that. He said he wanted a trust fund created to backstop communities. The legislator said no. They removed, he wanted schools to stay in, so the schools would take a cut. They pulled the schools out because if they left schools in, it never would pass. You're never going to get 60% if you go after the public schools. You just won't do it, right? Practical political strategy is you throw the schools in, it'll never pass. They pulled the schools out, so they got, that bigger piece to move it through. And originally they had a backstop for public safety that a community couldn't cut public safety, but 1 year prior, that was eliminated. So public safety is in the mix with everybody else. So you have to look at those things, So, yeah.
Two questions interrelated. What percentage of Florida residents are homesteaded and what percentage of Highland Beach residents are homesteaded?
Yeah, we're about 42%. The state of Florida is probably in the 30 percentile. I don't have that number hard, but I have our numbers. We're about 42%, which generates about 38% of our revenue. So it's not an exact match. I believe this group had that conversation last time we talked. It isn't an exact match of, our homestead to revenue generation, but we have some pretty high-end homestead prop, $38 million home that's homesteaded. Now, 250,000 off that. That's why we possibly do better than just about everyone else, is that we have some of those homes to prop up. And again, most of those folks, the $800, $875 savings that they might, it doesn't move the needle for them on their day-to-day lives. That's good for them. God bless. But I'm just saying, it doesn't move them one way or the other.
So basically, a city like Boynton Beach, who doesn't have a big tax base per se, would be in trouble. But then again, are a lot of them going to vote for it or not? If only 40% are homesteaded, the other 60 really don't care. So they might not vote for it.
Well, the non-homestead isn't voting, so that saves us a little bit. Again, it's a gubernatorial election, so the turnout's usually a little bit higher. No one knows what you do in your box, right? It's hard to predict what I mean, we'll start seeing polling research. And some of the strategies that I'll talk with the commission and you all is, we start taking some actions that may seem, like when we set our maximum millage rate in that resolution in July, we have until the very last meeting in September to officially set it. I'd elevate that to backstop, what it is. So as we see polling information, if it starts polling at 65, 70%, we need to be prepared. Now, if it flutters around in the 50 percentile, we're probably okay and it won't pass through. Now, that's our immediate focus. Now, does that anger the legislator to take more actions? I don't know that they'll go back to the ballot box. They'll just have to work the levers that are available to them. But we're going to have to start protecting ourselves and set it up. But,
Haven't they tried to do this a couple times before?
Good point. Good point. It failed the last two times.
And because?
In 2018? Yeah, just before I got here, 2018, you guys didn't pass an increase in the homestead exemption. It failed. And I was just talking with Len. I don't know, because I think in either 18 or 20, you passed the 60% threshold in the state of Florida. So I'm trying to remember, so the last referendum one, I think, failed without a 60% threshold. It failed on a 50% threshold. So now it's the 60. So it's some good news, right? There's the optimism that, again, it's hard to get 60%. That number is hard to get. But they're going to really I think it's going to be close, just because the vote yes on this has a lot of money. A lot of money behind it to make it happen. And you have somebody's legacy. You have a needed platform for a national profile. There's things, and this is just the political tactics that are behind some of it. Those are real. They come to play, and that's kind of how it works. Those are things that, are all at play that make it scary. David. Okay.
Yes. I'm sorry.
60% of the people who are actually voting, or 60% of the whole electorate?
Who vote? 60% whoever show up. Again, you're going to get a big turnout. Some of the national energy might work in the favor of this. I don't know.
Okay.
My job, my job is apolitical. I'm just saying that I have to read the strategies that are all moving in play to let you know what it could look like. Again, I appreciate the optimism. We'll be okay. It's just to be, the okay is going to be harder to achieve. And it'll take more careful planning, if you will, on all of us to see how we want to get there. You're gonna have to tell me how you want to get there. I'm gonna come up with all the scenarios. You tell me what levers you want to pull. And that's why I always tell the commission, here's all your options. You want me to pull this crazy lever? I'll pull the crazy lever. If you wanted to pull this lever. But I think at the end of the day, we'll get there. It's just, it could be a little bit bouncy. It might, again, it's the old, a little bit of belt tightening, some austerity, like let's cool down on a few things. We may have to do that because I don't want I would believe the commission, even this group and residents wouldn't want to see the benefit of an approved amendment to be totally erased immediately with a tax increase, right? It just doesn't sit well with a lot of people. Like, hey, well, it passed. I get to save, $1,200 on my tax bill, let's say, or $1,000 on my tax bill, and the town's going to raise my taxes by $1,000. You don't gain or lose anything, but you never got the gain. And if you voted for it, you'd be like, I want some of that gain. So there's going to be that balancing act a little bit to get in there. And there's only so many levers we can pull. We could look at a fire fee, where it's a special fee off the taxes that pay for a portion of fire service, just the fire side, not the EMS. You could collect a special fee. There might be something we look at to keep our taxes down, not do that. So I've been talking with some of my colleagues out there, what that looks like. We're just going to have to, it's different, right? I think we're good for a couple years. I think it's that the 28, 29 budget where it's 250, we're going to have to sit down and be like, and we just don't know what, again, those secondary impacts start to look like that have unintended consequences that are all going to focus on the squeeze. Because they put in language that said they have to come up with a uniform. Now this is kind of wonky, right? A uniform procedure and process by which counties and municipalities can get to full elimination. So I don't know what that means, but they can do it by general law now. They can't do it by a vote. Now they'll have the general law ability to do that. I don't know if the procedure is you shall within 5 years, and here's the procedure you follow. So like they double back cost, but somebody would sue that on that language barrier, It's just, when you give general law, legislators in 60 days could come up with some pretty crazy stuff on that short period of time. It's not a full-time legislator we're working with. It's part-time. They go fast. So how about
All right.
budget presentation? It's good.
Let's do that.
It's a rosier picture.
On we go. David, are you around?
I'm sorry about that interruption. If you turn you should have the presentation here. I'll start sharing my screen
David's got it. Okay.
and we can go forward.
Nice.
Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. So as we said, as Marshall had said, our budget assumptions had assumed a certain rate. Well, when the property appraiser came back, we realized that the value of the taxable value of the property there in Highland Beach was about 4.1%. We're confident, obviously, that we can maintain that 3.5875 mils. Also, keep in mind that, in 2026, we were very heavily focused on capital. But these right here, as you can see here, these right here are just some of the preliminary. Remember, we're at about 75% of where we think our budget numbers are going to be. We have some estimates in there for insurance and pension. The state of Florida won't release pension contributions until July. So we have some of those assumptions already baked in. But we really had some great accomplishments. I'm on slide 3 now. For 26, this was our first full year of operations. If you recall, we had a partial year where we were floating both Delray and our new staff, and also building that beautiful firehouse. But this year, FY 25 and 26, this right here, what we're currently in, is our first full year of operations, and it's been very successful. And these were some of the other accomplishments that we've already achieved, excuse me, this year. When you look at our strategic projects and our initiatives, these are things that the highlighted ones are what we like to do is we like to, when we have more clarity on how much these budgeted items in the future are going to cost, what we tend to do is we tend to bring you budget amendments at that time when we're done with planning, engineering, and as we get closer. But we'll continue to look at these projects. A lot of these projects are in queue. We're just kind of still in the process of planning, but you'll see some of these in our next budget cycle. But if you ever wondered what our millage rate, our proposed millage rate is made up of, I'm on slide 5. It's our operating mills there at 3.427, and then obviously our debt service millage proportion related only to the firehouse, and so that's what brings us our 3.5875. And keep in mind that this has been the same millage since October 1st, 2022, or FY23. We have all these different funds, and these right here, this is just a high level in transfers in versus transfers out from the different funds. It stayed relatively the same. You'll see as we go farther in this presentation, we bumped up maybe what the sewer fund provides to the water fund, and then also what the building fund provides to the general fund. But we'll go through those as we go through each of the different funds. But keep in mind, if you look at this slide here, slide number 7, there used to be a time back in FY22, right, when our millage, we would have to send money over to the water fund. And the reason why that is because, we didn't have the rate structure yet fixed for the water fund to stand on its own. But right now, all of the funds stand on their own. And you can see here what we tried to do is we tried to eliminate that water fund debt millage. We finally got rid of that, and we replaced that obviously with the fire debt millage. But the goal here was to keep our millage rate the same. And we had planned that during our 5-year forecast for the future that we do every year. And we've been very successful. As Marshall had said, as we'll discuss later on, potential legislation may modify those rates in the future. But this right here is pretty much what our FY27. This is what our millage rate is going to consist of. It's going to consist of our operating millage for the general fund, and then a little bit for our debt on the firehouse behind you. Well, this is a history of really what's happened in the town. The solid block lines, right? Those are the taxable values of the set by the property appraiser, and then the solid line here. This right here is the percentage change. So we got up to 13.7% increase in 1 year, if you recall. Well, now that's trending down, and you can see in the past, in FY21, property growth was only about 2.3% back in the day, and so we came up very, very steep. You can see how steep this trajectory upward was, and we are starting to climb down low. Now we were hoping for maybe a 5% change in property value this year. But it got a little bit more drastic. It went down to about 4.1% as set by the property appraiser. So as we discussed earlier, over 73% of our revenue to do what the town needs to do in all the services that it provides, 73% of our revenue comes from property taxes. And yeah, we get a little bit in here from the state of Florida, or we get a little bit in from franchise fees. your charges for service, that's just almost like a pass through for garbage collection. We get a little bit from investment earnings, but as you can see, the lion's share of our revenue is obviously property taxes. And so I'm on slide 10. So this is the general fund. You can see here what you're looking at here, the dark blue section here. These are actuals, FY 23, 24, and 25 per the audit. We estimate where we think we're going to hit for FY 26. And then you also have your budgets in the next columns, FY 25, 26, 27. And then here in the far right column, that we're looking at budget versus budget. So we're looking at what's this 27 budget compared to our 26 budget look like. And so you can see, when we increase 4.3%, well, that generates a little bit over, $600,000 of additional revenue. Now, when I say additional revenue, that revenue there has to also cover our increase in costs. And if you recall, our inflation is about 2.5% in your area, 2.5 to 3%. Now we didn't account for the massive increases in gas, but hopefully that'll be coming down. But overall, this is a majority of our revenue that will go pay for the expenditures, comes from our property taxes. And so we've increased everything else. Also look at here on the bottom, the very bottom line here is appropriation from reserves. If you recall, we pulled out about 3.5. The board gave us approval for $4 million to be able to pull from our reserves for the fire department. We were successful and we came in under that budget as well. But we've never had to pull, as you can see here, when you see appropriation from reserves, we've never had to pull that lever that we've had in the past. So here are our expenditures. Here you can see our operating expenditures. Our operating expenditures include all of those expenditures to run the local government. And you can see here how come it was higher in 23 and 24. Well, keep in mind, it was much higher in 23 and 24 because if you recall, we were holding almost 2 fire departments. If you recall, we had to have Delray Fire Department as well as our own fire department. In addition, you can also see our capital outlay. This right here was the transition year, 23, 24. This was when we were building and maintaining 2 fire departments for that crossover period of time. So we kind of got back into, in 2025, a state of normalcy where we had our first full year of our own fire and EMS service, and we weren't necessarily still retaining Delray Beach. But anyway, so you can see here that operating expenses, personnel services not only include your pay, but also pension contribution, health insurance, payroll taxes, all the above the costs associated with that. And you can also see our debt service. The debt service here, and again, this is just for the general fund. The debt service here is obviously for the fire department. And you can see here in the past, but this was always part of our 5-year plan was, hey, listen, as property values increase, what we're going to do with the excess cash is we're going to store it away until future. We just didn't realize that future meant 27, 28. So we obviously planned very well. We built the fire station just in time, and I think we're doing extremely well. And as Marshall said, we'll be able to weather this change in legislation successfully as always. It'll take some planning, but I'm confident, as you are, Dr. Greenwald, that we'll be able to do that. Right now, Here you have your general fund capital plan. These are kind of the things we hope to accomplish this year. Nothing major, probably, you know, the town side streets resurfacing, that's kind of a major thing. But all of our costs here include our standard cost of living and wage adjustments. We've also baked into these numbers increases in operating expenses and repairs and maintenance, and a slight decrease in capital outlay. As I said before, FY26 was major capital focus. 27, you know, we're going to moderate that down a little bit and see what the future legislation holds. But you can also see too that, you know, that as expenses increase, we maintain the property values start to come down a little bit, and we maintain our millage rate. You can see that appropriation to reserve starts to go down a little bit. You know, but that's really predicated on how much we're going to be spending on capital outlay. If you look at departments, as I said before, when you're looking at all of the general fund departments, each department includes its own labor, its own labor and related costs, operating costs. If that department has any capital or debt service costs, where that applies, that we keep that in that department so we can tell how each department is doing. But as Marshall had said, and as we all knew, you know, public safety is about 67, almost 70% of your expenditures. So when we start thinking about what areas could be affected, keep in mind that 70% of your general fund expenditures are public safety related. You know, we also have. You can also see here that we have moved some staff from finance to shared services, but this was back in 2025. We have a little bit lower capital expenditures within most departments, but all in all, you can see that, you know, it's department wise, it's only grown about 1.6%. This is kind of interesting. This next slide number 13. To show you was this is our fund balance. So when we talk about the general fund and cash, here's our audited figures, 23, 24, 25. We're estimating for 26, and we're estimating obviously for 27. But you might say, wow, okay, we've got a lot of cash in the general fund, right? You can see that 8 million, 10 million, 11 million, 12 million. Okay. All right, I can see that, but our policy is to restrict those funds. So you can see here we have budget stabilization restriction. We have a disaster recovery restriction. We created a fire rescue sinking fund restriction so that we can start planning ahead for replacement of those expensive vehicles. Really, the only one that's unrestricted at this time is called unassigned. And if you flow here to your right, I have about, 90 days. I've got about 3 months of cash that is really unassigned. So when we look at our budgeting, when we look at the future, where we can pull from, keep in mind, we're not hoarding cash here. We have these reserves earmarked for a specific purpose, but at the end of the day, our unassigned value of what we can really budget in is about 90 days of operating cash. We have about 90 days of that because we put so much restrictions on other types of budget stabilization and disaster recovery in case of God forbid, a tornado or hurricane quake. We'll be we pull into that about 16.5% for each of those categories. This right here, yes.
So when you're making the that point, I mean, 90 days reserves doesn't sound like very much to me. At least in other places I've been, we typically kept more. Now, obviously, we have reserves that are restricted, but are you implying that we should have more in the general reserves than what we currently have now at 90 days? Or you're happy with that, or where are we with that?
No, well, the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, does say about 2 to 3 months, of reserves. What I just wanted to show you here was of the $12 million that we do have in reserves for this fund, really only about $4.8 million is what we would call unassigned, meaning that the commission has said, yes, you might have $12 million, but you can only touch those $12 million in these certain categories for these certain events.
But again, just to add to that, if you recall back from like the third slide, basically we have two major capital projects that aren't budgeted, but are allocated to that unassigned fund balance. So we have, that's to handle some planned projects, maybe not the engineering. We've budgeted the engineering and a little bit, but the hard cost is still pending, especially the fire has not really been sourced in as to what that is to redo that whole annex area.
Yeah.
But again, so some of that's going to come down, but it's accounted for loosely. We haven't said it's officially a project yet until we see numbers. So,
So you're saying that fire rescue pending thing is a building or personnel?
that's the structure. The old fire station,
Right,
knock
right.
it down, build a new annex, basically a big garage for all the equipment, some storage. Yep.
Are you thinking of going forward with that?
The commission's probably going to take a real close look at that and some of the other ones as we move forward, depending on how that outcome is. I think some of these capital projects, we're going to have to take a closer look at these bigger one-off big projects. I think the commission is going to probably pump the brakes a little bit, say, is it really something we should do now? Or is it something that, hey, we've got it designed. Why don't we wait and see how this legislative thing shakes out? Because we might need cash in the short term to bridge some stuff. And again, I don't think it's next year or the year after. It's that 28, 29 budget where the 250 comes in, where it could be a little bit bouncy. So they may want to hold and see. We have a project right now that's out to bid for the real-time operations center for police, the new front end, like the new entrance to police, We got to see where that number comes in, because it's treading above our threshold. So it may be a ballot question, and I don't know that that's a real ripe issue at the moment to go to the voters and say, hey, we need to spend more for this. So we have to see where that project comes in as well.
As the advisory group here, should we advise the commission what we think that maybe we should hold off on that until after the election
You know
in the
what?
fall?
You guys are coming together here. I like this. So
Well,
at some
have a
point,
great
you know,
town
there
here.
could be a series of recommendations after this budget presentation where you may want
Okay.
to say, hey, commission, we reviewed the budget. It looks good. We're concerned in out years. When a capital project comes through, maybe we should go through a larger exercise to evaluate need, wants, desires, and costs at the FAB and provide another recommendation. You guys could be a good sounding board at that point too. So I mean, like you could say just be cautious, or take a more elaborate review of capital projects over the next 2 years. You can make those type of recommendations. But those come out of it. I think, this is probably timely where, like I said, as this moves forward, if it passes, you guys are going to meeting a little bit more often. I think there's just going to be the need for public review on costs and budgets and services. And I think it'll help all of us that when we pull those decisions or make harder decisions, everybody's on board with it. So we all make that decision together. And I'm not trying to just put it all off on your lap. I'll make the final decisions once you tell me to do it. I'll deliver the bad news if we have to, but we should do it collectively and have that opportunity for the public as much as possible to participate.
Yeah, and we're an advisory position
Right.
to the commission, so we don't make the decisions, but
Be advised.
certainly if we're in a financial environment where we're looking at various capital projects, we could, after getting appropriate information, opine as to whether, I mean, for example, the sidewalk should rank ahead of new fire department versus putting in the marine pathway so that our boat can have a place to dock, et cetera, whatever else is
I'm
going on at the moment.
Yeah, because I'm kind of bummed out because we had planned everything so we could do everything.
Yeah.
Those days are over, so we're gonna have to rechange our thought pattern. We had planned for capital, capital project planning could probably come back to this group because the amount of money available is shrinking quickly. You guys might be helping them to make those decisions. Like what of these capital projects? We can't do all of them. Which one rises to the top or comes down? I'd like to see the two police public safety officers. I'd like to see Chief Joseph and Chief Hartman here argue which project should go. That'd be entertaining. But at the same time, those types of real thoughtful processes, I think, are gonna be necessary.
Could I address a question to David?
Sure.
Dave, what's the break-even point for the fire department between what Delray was holding us hostage to and us having 1 year of the full fire department? Have we reached that break-even point yet?
No, we anticipated that because of the cost of building, keep in mind, we built a brand new building, right? And so that we had to take on that cost, but we thought that we would be at 7 years, that after 7 years, we would be ahead of the curve. But keep in mind, can you imagine, it blows my mind actually. Can you imagine that if you did not build that fire station, what rates you would be at? My prediction is instead of you budgeting $6 million a year, you would be probably you'd look at at least a $10 million amount that they would say, hey, you know what? We have to increase our rates because of what's going on in the future legislation.
It was shrewd and smart. And I'm glad we did it. I just was curious, so the
Yeah.
people who may be watching this, that fire department ended up giving us a break even in the future.
Yeah, David, I had asked that specifically at our last meeting for you guys, if you would, to come up with some numbers.
Yep.
Just in terms of, I think people are generally, and I certainly am, are very happy that we move forward with the fire department, but we did, in the process of selling it, if you will, make some projections that some of which, in addition to improving quality, which was most important in many people's minds, was that we would also, once we got through with the initial capital expenditures, be saving money.
Right.
And the projections were up to a couple of $1 million a year, basically.
Yeah.
And it would be, and some of it's an estimate because Delray's expenses have gone up dramatically since then. So if we were still part of their contract, our contract would have gone up significantly.
We'd be negotiating right now.
Right. The point being, though, it would be nice, I think, for people to at least get some idea when we have a major, because the town doesn't go through that many projects of that magnitude.
Yeah.
How we are actually doing compared to some of the forecasts. And I think that since I believe people are very happy with how things are going, it would be, I think, reassuring to people if we could put out some numbers to show that, we're near projection, we're on projection, we're ahead of whatever the numbers actually show, they show. But I think helpful for people to know that.
Also, do it with or without the building. You can't ignore the building, but what does it cost us to run the show without the building versus what it was before when we didn't have a building? We had Delray. That's something I'm always curious of where we are.
Yeah, so
The
that's
operational cost.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think we were and I'll jump in, David. He says 7 years, we were like 6.7, 6.6. That included the building.
Yeah.
That included construction with everything. Like by 2030, we were to be breaking even and being $2 million less than them on that cost structure. To go back to see what it would be now, the hard part would be, because they would, definitely not give us a good contract.
Oh, you have on the budget,
They would not be giving us a good contract.
on the budget, you do break out the personnel services and the operating expenses and the
Mm.
capital outlay for the fire department and every department. It would be a good idea to say, okay, that's what it's costing a year without the bill.
David and I will put some, we'll
It's
pencil out some
difficult to
assumptions.
do.
Yeah, you can
They
get
have to
that.
make other assumptions on things, but I'm really curious, is the 2 million, the personnel services is 2,240,000.
Well, they have an underfunded pension, which has been their crux of everything. I don't know how you would estimate that cost because they
Well,
were
that's-
so upside down.
That's the point I'm making.
yeah.
Things that are going to be difficult, but it's nice, it's worth a try to see if the 2,200,000 for the personnel services, what was it 2 years ago? It might
Yeah,
be
we
meaningless,
could
but
do
we
some
have
basic,
to do
we
something.
could fine tune what we
you can-
originally assumed. Dave and I will revisit that and post it, send it out. You guys can take a look, let us email us back if you like it.
Yeah, and
makes
they have,
sense.
they publish what their operating budget is for their fire department.
Yeah.
So you look proportionally about how it worked before, and then they add on their 20% service fee or whatever they were charging us before, whatever it was, and at least get some idea, so that it won't be exact, obviously.
Sure.
because but it'll give some people some ideas to, how wise the decisions were back at that time. And I think that can be helpful for.
You
The
got
way
it.
the relationship is gone now, it's probably been very helpful.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Okay, no, we'll do that. But where I stopped at is, here's all your cash. On the top part, this is all your cash as of audited, as of fiscal years FY25. This is an estimate for FY26 and as well as an estimate of FY27. So the top line shows all of your cash at various institutions, investments, and operating bank accounts. The bottom line, or the bottom set of numbers, this is how those cash dollars above are broken out. This is how they are allocated to the general fund, to the building fund, to the water fund. And so this is how we know how much cash is available by fund. This is just one of those things that governmental accounting requires. And so, but this right here breaks it out for you. Now we're leaving the general fund, the building fund. The building fund revenues are what we're projecting for FY27. We're anticipating a little bit of a slowdown, but nothing crazy. But it's been growing astronomically, to be honest with you. And again, once again, the commission, the FAB, they make the right decisions at the right time, especially with our interlocal agreement with our partner. And Gulfstream, that's helped us out tremendously. But you can see that, that when we look at our budget, we're going to try to pull some money out from that fund's reserves. So right now we're thinking about a little bit less than a 7% a drop in their revenues for FY27, just for a slowing down of some Highland Beach projects. But again, that's our preliminary budget assumption. Expenses here, we've increased our operating expenses, our personnel. We tapped down a little bit on the capital outlay. We've increased a little bit for the transfers from this fund to the general fund to cover their proportionate share of the overhead for the general fund, which again, all these numbers have been audited and the auditors agree with our method of allocation. But we did some pretty heavy stuff in FY26 with our capital, and so we're planning just to tap that down a little bit for FY27 to look at some of the legislation changes. But overall, this fund here has a very healthy fund balance. It's got 500 plus days of cash. Its ability to stand on its own for over a year and a half, is phenomenal. And it has some little bit, of capital projects. But Marshall and I are still looking at what is the correct balance for not only for FY 27, but also the ensuing 5 years of our capital plan and where certain things drop in at the correct time. But for now, anyway, we're looking at resurfacing the entire town complex, everything that you see there, as well as just some minor software and related capital expenditures that the building fund will more likely need. When we switch over to the water fund, you know, we're looking at a little bit decrease there in the water fund. Now, we are anticipating that rates will continue at a 5% rate increase, but we are lowering we increased the transfers in from the sewer fund. As you can see here, it's been $220,000 since forever. And so what we decided in FY 27, when we looked at the 5-year forecast with the council, we all agreed that this fund, the sewer fund needs to contribute a little bit more to the water fund for cash flow management. And so we decided in FY 27, we'll do that. So we went up from $220,000 to $300,000. We anticipate that our investment earnings in this fund, you know, will be a little bit less because they are spending money. They're having to pull, you can see appropriation from reserves. They're having to pull money out of their reserves to take on certain projects. And so, but it's okay. But here you can see our water revenues are up and our gallons are up, both in water and irrigation, as well as the revenue dollars when we increase those rates, as well as the increase in consumption. It does produce an overall increase. Now, as you're aware of, you know, there is seasonality with your area, obviously. And so that's sometimes what you see those peaks and valleys are, is just the seasonality with that fund. But as you can see here, when we look at the expenses of the funds, you know, we increased personnel services. We lowered a little bit down to about $300,000, some of the capital. You can also see our debt service is going down a little bit, and our transfers out to the general fund, they'll remain the same. Talking about debt, here is when the next tranche of debts start to drop off. We had a nice drop off from 24 to 25, but the next reduction in our series of debt service doesn't really happen until 29. You know, so right now we'll stay at about $810,000 a year. That includes principal and interest. But look at these interest rates, right? 1.18%, you know, 2.61%. These are very favorable interest rates, obviously back in the day. And you can see here when they start to knock off. Overall, this is one of the funds where we sit there and we say, you know, we need to look at how many days cash it has, how healthy is it for that fund. And so right now, you know, FY 27, you know, it's getting close. You know, we're getting into between the 85 to 80 days cash on hand. So we're Marshall and I and staff, we're looking at what capital projects are the most beneficial. We get most bang for our buck, and we'll continue to look at those. The sewer fund, we have an agreement with Delray. They treat our sewer. So the sewer fund is a bunch of lift stations throughout the island that sewer gets pumped to. And we've gotten some grants in the past. We haven't budgeted any grants right now for FY 27, but we did assume in the sewer fund that a 5% rate increase will be effective October 1st of 2026. And so yeah, so we anticipated that increase. We also dropped down, having to pull from our appropriation from reserves. This right here was those major capital projects that we talked about, the sewer relining, capital projects. You can see here that the sewer fund, as well as the water fund, its increase in usage is a positive movement. Here's our overall budget of the expenditures. You can see that the major decrease in expenditures will be those capital outlays. You know, we really budgeted hard in FY26 with the sewer relining. Well, now we're going to go back down to about $385,000 in capital outlay. Transfers went up as we anticipated that going to the water fund. But here you can see that where the water fund was at, I'm on slide 27, where the water fund was at 80 to 85 days of cash, you know, the sewer fund is a little bit healthier. And so we have these projects here of sewer lateral relining and the stormwater Bellito upgrades and some portable generators that we're looking at for this fund for FY27. But in summary, if you look at all of the funds, the general fund, building, water, and sewer, and you look at all the sources of our revenue, and you look at all the uses of that revenue, you know, you'll be able to see here that our total budget is going to be about $30.3 million to run everything in your town. And you can also see that we have a nice mix. Look at 52% of our expenditures are, you know, labor and related. You know, 30% or 29% is operating expenses, 6% is capital outlay, you know, 5% overall when you look at the whole town. And right now, you know, we're still able to drop for FY27. We budget to drop about 2%, you know, into our appropriation from reserves or appropriation to reserves for this budget year for FY27. As Marshall said, we are working on our the property tax constitutional amendments. We have that in our site, and we're going to be doing some extensive planning on what the next 5 years actually looks like and how that affects each of these 4 funds and how that affects services to the community. But I'm here to answer any questions.
Well, anybody have any questions for David? Any concerns, questions? I have a few, but
It's just to know, this is very preliminary or just preliminary?
75%-ish, plus or minus. I still have to go through, comb a few of the accounts to make sure it's spot on, review some of David's staffing assumptions, we kind of double check. I'll double check his work, you know, do we get the right person at the right step in the union contract for police? Just do some of those things, tidying up. And then we'll present the similar one next week to the commission. They'll give me a little bit of guidance.
Will we be making any money off of Milani Park in terms of water, sewer?
I mean, they got to pay
Anything?
water. They got to pay water rates, but it's not going to be.
Very much.
Well, I mean, that's a public park with.
Well, they're
I
gonna
don't know
have
how they're going to fund a
litigation.
park with this stuff goes through, but
Maybe a
Um,
little bit.
I mean, a little bit. It's nothing. You know, the development that they're proposing on their private properties, the Milani family.
Yes.
You know, that would help. I mean, because those are going to be, you know, 40 to $50 million projects. That'll, you know, new tax base. That always helps a little bit, even though we'll be some limited, but it does help.
But if they homestead it,
Well, if you create the units, the 7 units that are currently under permit, you know, it'd be 7 different people. So some might be homesteaded, some wouldn't, but the values on those would be exceedingly higher than $250,000, I believe. Those units will be, I think she desires at some point, I heard in conversation about 6 million a unit. So they'll be above the 275 mark,
really?
I have a few
250, I should say. Sorry.
few questions.
Sure.
One, there was a line item about salaries and then 5 to 10%.
It depends on contract.
I understand,
Yeah, okay.
but the town was on a campaign for a while to make this,
Yes.
you know, a place where people would choose to work
Mhm.
and make our salaries more competitive. How is that going and where are we? Because
Jackie stares right at me
5 to 10
immediately.
no, 5 to 10% sounds
We owe Jackie. a little bit.
actually reasonably generous in this day and age, given everything that's going on. So that's,
So, I mean, we're moving forward. I do it annually. It's a longer term process of trying to get us to, you know, kind of these averages. So we go through a series of salary studies. They call it the PEPI, which is created by the Florida Public Human Resource. So they go through all of these municipality HR departments, ask what are your pay ranges. Most of what we're doing is it's the compensation structure and ranges that we work within. We're so far behind. So we've moved them in some fashion forward. Some are at, you know, the first quartile. I know the commission and the mayor said we should be probably more towards average. Some people have said even higher, but we're kind of staying at the average, and we look annually to see where those are. So we're making good progress on getting those to the right spots, the positions classified in the appropriate ranges. We've made commitments on healthcare. We provide a pension. Some of our other secondary benefits are good that are optional for the employees. They get to work with the wonderful residents here in Highland Beach. That's always, you know, it's hard to put a value on that, right? But yeah, so we're slowly moving now in this environment. I think is there's two steps, right? There's the salary table adjustment that over the years now the commission, I know the vice mayor is really strong on this, is to hinge the salary range movement as it's in the table based on inflation. So the range changes. So a range today will be, the range tomorrow will be appropriately adjusted to inflation. Now, how an individual employee moves within that range is contingent upon merit increases year over year. And then eventually it does happen here in government. I know some of the folks that I've brought in from the private sector are surprised that there are ceilings. Like once you get far enough into the process, you only move annually, but you can't, the range is kind of capped based on the cost of inflation. You know, we're making good progress. You know, there's still a handful of positions that need to be tweaked a bit. A few people that are probably a little bit underpaid by state averages. Everybody thinks they're underpaid. I don't want to cast dispersions, but when you look at it collectively across the state or the region, there's a few tweaks that we still need to make. I don't know that this 5 to 10% range does account for that. So we're still on target to get there, and it's an annual process. So slowly it'll become a habit, and we'll get everybody in the right buckets.
but our goal is still to get there where we're
Yeah, we're getting there. It's hard.
competitive or even better so that we don't presumably lose good people because they can make a little bit more someplace else, which is,
I mean, at some point in time, you could always make money somewhere else if you changed profession. So in there are some job descriptions that you just, you know, you can look at it within the state, what it's described, or, you know, government it's more of a marathon career than a sprint, right? You could go to the private sector, do something, maybe it pays more, faster, quick. Everything's a little bit different. So within the civil service environment, we try to keep everything structured appropriately. And I always use the word like market rate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be, we don't want to be paying employees significantly less than adjacent towns next. So it doesn't make any sense because you're never going to keep the talent or get the talent. So we try to be appropriate. Yeah, Boca pays a little bit more. Well, then maybe you go to Boca, but at the same point, we're not vastly behind them, or we're not leaps and bounds ahead of other communities. So like we're in a good spot, a sweet spot as we're trying to create.
so short.
Kind of more of an art than a science.
Short answer though would say that you feel comfortable that we're maybe a few positions not, but basically where we want to be. I mean, we've caught up at this point.
I mean, there's some positions that if I moved it to there, it's kind of, we gotta be careful, you know, like,
Okay.
there's some positions that need to be significantly moved. What I mean by like steps and the ranges, not so much their immediate pay, but the ranges need to move. But we got to do that over time, because if we moved everybody immediately to that, that big push on personnel services would be a big cost. So we're doing it over time.
I just thought that that was an important project, so I just wanted to check and make sure that we were moving.
And the
in right
employees
direction.
appreciate that statement, really. I mean, it's, especially when you start seeing these attacks and feelings, you kind of feel kind of beaten down in your career. And we do it. I mean, I'm frugal. I'm going to go with frugal today. If I got the fire chief in, he might use cheap, you know. So like, I'm a little more slower to move. I'm not as, I want to say, I don't want to move you can't do it all at once, because the impact is too hard immediately on the budget. So you got to do this move over like a 5-year period. And we're like in year 3. So we're not done yet, but it'll move appropriately over the next couple of years. Well, it was supposed to, right? And now if the legislator and the stuff does, it might slow that a little bit.
Okay.
It might depress the overall markets too. But I don't know. I just think it's just,
No, that's fine.
yeah.
My second question, David,
Yes.
water and sewer, we've had all planned, no surprises, but some fairly significant water and sewer increased rates over the last like 5 years when they became independent. This was all part of the plan. I mean, all that. But it would appear as though some of their reserves are still like not necessarily headed in the right direction. Are you reasonably comfortable that at the projected, kind of 5% or at least slower rates of increases that we've had in recent years, that will be self-sustaining the way we're going, or are we going to need to put more money into that? And as a ancillary question to that, how are our water and sewer rates these days compared to surrounding communities?
Look, I'll answer your first question. I think your sewer fund is healthy, but we had planned to accumulate cash reserves for this large sewer lining project, which actually came in better than we anticipated, obviously. The water fund, we've benefited a little bit from that, from the paying off of debt service. The water fund, it has a lot more expenditures. It has labor in there. It's got debt service. It's got capital. So it's low. It's a little bit lower than I would like. But it's lower by probably 50 days. I would like to be at the 180 days of cash reserves. So to answer your question, I would like to see a little bit more increase in our water rates, not so much our sewer rates. But then again, you have to understand that sewer rates are capped based on flow. So to answer your question, it's a balancing act with property taxes, property values, water rates. So to answer your question, I would like to see a little bit more of a bump there in water, but we'll finesse it. We'll get there eventually. The water and sewer fund are self-sustaining, and that's where we wanted to be. Now we just have to kind of plan a little bit more for the future, but and then your last question was remind me what your last question was again. I'm sorry, sir.
It was how are we relating 5 years ago when we looked, our water rates were actually pretty favorable compared to surrounding communities.
Yes.
And we've switched how we pay for things, obviously, and I was curious as to
where we're at with that.
or now compared to surrounding communities.
I'll reach out to RAF TELUS. RAF TELUS is the organization that does a Florida aerial as well as municipal surrounding areas of what everybody's water and sewer rates per 5,000 gallons are. Let me see if I can get that report and I'll shoot it over to the committee, and I'll show you where our rates are versus other surrounding communities in Southeast Florida.
Yeah, that would be good. And I would point out that, I mean, everybody knows this already, but I mean, our water and sewer rates have several components. I mean, one is the turn-on fee, and then the other one is the actual rate of usage. So it's both. So you can certainly, I mean, as required, one could change either one or both of those. You know, if more or less money is required to run those funds, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, one's a variable thing and one's fixed, so.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
David, Ed Cornfeld, quick question. Just one number I was looking at, the total expenditures and plus is $30 million with this budget.
Yep.
We're running $33 million now, and the property taxes will stay pretty well flat. I'm sure we didn't have enough time to go line by line, and I'm not asking that. Is there anything specific that drops the total cost of functioning by $3 million?
Well, we're not doing as in our FY27 budget, we're not doing as much capital versus our 2026 budget. Our 2026 budget, the budget we're in now, we really were capital intensive and so therefore a lot of those projects are at the beginning phase or mid phase or almost going to be complete. For FY27, the projects don't necessarily go away. It's just that we're just anticipating slowing down some of our capital improvement projects.
Okay. So if I took a hard look, it would be in looking at that area to see the reduction in the from the 33 to 30. That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions to David or Marshall regarding the budget?
No.
Are there any comments or concerns or anything that we specifically want to pass on to the, it's very early in the process, obviously, so we're not making any kinds of formal recommendations other than I think at this point to say that we're on track and people are considering the right things and we need to see how the next draft pans out. Does anybody have any additional comments?
No.
And particularly any specific concerns about anything that they would like to see addressed as the budget process moves forward? Anybody? Okay. Hearing none. David, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we will move on to the item D on the agenda, which is discussion on the introduction of the proposed resolution adopting procedures to the initiation and adoption of town ordinances. And hopefully, I'm hoping that everybody had a chance to read through this and also hopefully had the opportunity to hear some of the descriptions either at previous town commission meetings by watching the appropriate portions or at the watching the presentation at the planning board meeting that Linelda pointed out to everybody so that we can move through this. I'm sure Marshall can answer questions if anybody has them, but is there any, I don't think it's necessary to read this thing, but is there any discussion, comments that anyone like to make? I know that I've seen this now multiple times. It's kind of what the town has been following as a procedure for some years now. But this is really just to codify it so that it's in the ordinances, and I think it plays well. I mean, the main goal was to make sure that there was a policy in place to give residents of the community ample and multiple opportunities to participate in the process, such that no one would be able to say, how did this happen? And how come I never heard about this before? So some of this is required by the state, as in their 2 readings. And some of it is additional steps with the town that includes involvement where appropriate of the various advisory boards. The two readings, before it even goes for a first reading, there's general discussions. And the whole process, I think, is nicely laid out. I think the main, I wouldn't say issues of contention, but of discussion since this process started was probably some changes in the, you know, the shalls to the wills to the mays kind of thing, where initially it was a little bit more stringent that items would, if you will, or shall go to various advisory boards, and that's been kind of adjusted to a may. And I think the concern there was there would be some instances where, if, for example, an advisory board couldn't get a quorum together to really act, that the commission could still move ahead in the project if, in the ordinance, if necessary, wouldn't be unduly delayed in the circumstances where that was an issue. So if there, I mean, my personal bias is I wouldn't bother to wordsmith this anymore. I'd leave it alone. I'm not sure that changing a word here or there would, I mean, you can argue about those kinds of things forever. But from the group, is there anyone that has any comments that, you know, really more in the lines of, you know, I don't like this. Why are we doing this? Here's how we can make it better. Does anybody have any comments as to that?
No.
No. Anybody? So can we go ahead then and say that we're in favor of things the way they are?
Yes.
And that we would advise the commission to go ahead and adopt this process? Everyone in favor?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Moving on in the agenda. Is there any other items or comments or anything that anyone will like to make? And we'll go in order. Mace, this was your first meeting. Anything to add or discuss?
Yeah, this time.
Ed?
Believe it or not, no, I really don't have any comments. I think it's on the financial reporting side, it's I've been on this committee for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. This is the best we've gotten by far.
Okay, and Maggie is vice chair.
Excellent,
Any
Dave
comments?
and Susie. It's wonderful the way you presented it. And anyone that's watching, it should be clear.
Okay, very good. Marshall, any last words?
Just remain optimistic for me because
No, we are.
I'll talk to my colleagues in these towns that are going to get washed out right away. And
Yeah, I don't think
it
we're
really
not,
brings the energy down, you know, but
we're not going to get washed
you
out.
know.
We're not going to get washed here. All right, announcements. Next financial advisory board meeting, date to be determined. We will leave it largely to Marshall and the planning folks and the commission when they would like us to opine on something as data becomes available. I mean, again, I think this group will probably start having a lot more to say once we figure out what is indeed going on with the state's tax structure.
Yeah.
But also in terms of just routinely with this year's budget as things move along.
I get a sense there'll be, excuse me, I'm sorry, but
No, go
I get
ahead.
a sense there'll be some changes to the budget. And we'd like to see, at least I would like to
If it
have
changes, sure.
another meeting. It could be. In
Usually it's
short order.
August. I need you guys, but it's a big travel month for everybody, and it's like it's the coolest month in Florida. So, August usually works well for everyone.
Well-
Are folks around in August by chance?
Yeah, well, I was going to poll people.
What
People
works
here-
generally, the generalish time where I could, and we'll, Jackie will call the others, but, what works best? You know, is August just a no one's in town kind of thing, or
I'm in town most of the time.
you guys all travel? I know, and I could see it in your eyes.
I'm gone for 1 week in August, but I'm not sure of the exact dates yet. I'm around all of July, actually, and
What, September?
September I'm here too.
It really depends on when do we get close to approving that budget? And we want to have a good look at it before.
The last approval,
Is,
September, I have my calendar here. I'm like trying to guess. I have that written out.
Well, we have the first hearing is September 10th, and then the second hearing is September 24th.
Yeah, 24th is the date we adopt. And so everything is finalized on the 24th of September, barring commission changes. Usually we have sometime in August, like August 20th or August 11th, we would do potentially a special budget meeting if necessary. That's usually if a certain provision or number of healthcare comes in at wild numbers, or the commission says we got to, major cuts.
We got a hurricane.
Or hurricane could really to break that up on us, but
The only,
July could be a date. I want to send it to the commission. I'll get a better feel next Tuesday because they're getting the same. I don't think David and I are going to change much on their presentation, so they'll take a look at it and say good, bad, indifferent. I will share your concerns that maybe we take a closer look at capital projects as we move forward.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'll leave it to them to see. They may not change much of it unless you guys are like, this budget's terrible. Then maybe the process changes a little bit. You seem generally comfortable, right? I mean, it's not perfect, but generally comfortable. So the commission will take a look at them. They want it. Maybe they may say, hey, take a closer look or take a deeper dive into capital for us. Then I will be running back here to get you guys together, get the capital program.
and I think this group has expressed interest that if it is going to be like one of the capital projects that gets cut or not deferred, shall we say,
Yep.
that people here would be interested in learning more about that and chiming in.
Absolutely.
So the only thing that I would ask is that depending on, it fits best in staff schedule and the whole budget process, that we be given dates of potential dates as early as possible so that we
Sure.
can do our best to be here. And the other thing that I've discussed with both Linelda and Jacqueline is that we are strictly an advisory group, so legally, we don't decide anything. So that, well, we recommend things,
Sure.
but I mean, it's different than like a planning board or the commission, certainly. So what we can do if we're having difficulty getting a quorum, which can sometimes happen to this group in the summer because we have two members that are basically gone
Right.
during the summer. We can always do this and have it be a workshop type session where we can have the discussions. If there's any public interest, people from the public can attend and, have the same discussions, but
Done that
possibly
before, yeah.
with one less person here. And
We'd like to have most of you here, though.
we would prefer to have everyone here, but sometimes in the summer, it's been difficult. Okay, if there's no further business before the group, then we will adjourn. Thank you for your attendance.